updated version for the Enviro-Quality check website. This is a part of the final for Comp 350, which is user interface and design. I've made a video previously touching on what this app is and some other things, and this is just an updated version where I include stuff that we learned about in the second half of the course. So starting with the UI design and problem definition, to define the problem, I've implemented a double diamond model, which we learned about in the second half of the course. In the double diamond model, we have the discover and define, which is part of the first diamond, and we have develop and deliver, which is part of the second diamond. And I've added a few other things over here. So if we get started with the discover part, in the discover part, I've added in observations where after searching the internet, there are some resources that report air quality and separately water quality. However, there's no one resource that reports air and water quality around the world without the user having to hassle around different websites and pages. And the define part is where we define the problem. So the problem statement is that there's no single resource which delivers information on air quality, water quality, and pollution around the world. In the solution definition or ideation, we also use the double diamond model where I'm in the second part of the second diamond. So this was the first diamond. So the type of innovation this design is this incremental innovation. It's not radical innovation because we're building off a previous tech. Like we have this data already, and we already have like languages like HTML, CSS, where we're just building off a previous tech. We're not creating something new or radical. And basically, the solution to this problem that we defined here is that it's going to be an interactive map with separate pages for air and water quality. For the develop phase, we have the medium environment that this is going to be in is a website using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and other resources like air and water quality data from countries with the potential for an app, which I'll touch on later. In the develop phase, we also have we're going to create UI design diagrams such as conceptual models, workflows, and mockups. And we're going to define UI design principles, guidelines, and error handling and testing, which I'll talk about. So this is develop phase. I'll talk about in the next few slides. For the deliver part, we have publishing this onto the web and allowing for users to use this resource intuitively and according to their preferences. So it's a human-centered design, which I'll talk about in slide 3. And everything that I've added in is bolded and italicized. So the moral design obligation that we talked about in the second half of the course is that to fulfill that, I've added no unnecessary features. They're all basic features for the user, so it's really clear and not complicated for the user. The target audience I forgot to address in the previous video clearly is that this is a global use where tourists or foreigners from around the world along with local residents can use this for health reasons, so anybody in the world can use this. Addressing competition, which we addressed in the second half of the course, is that there are competitive solutions like Apple Weather, Windy.com, Weather Network, and IQ Air. What this design, what they lack from this design is that they all lack one resource for both water and air, while this design has both in one website. So continuing on in the develop part of the double diamond model, where we talked about conceptual model, workflow, and prototype. For the conceptual model, I changed it a little bit where I made it simpler and more like the bare bones of this design. For the workflows, quickly addressing the prototypes, nothing has changed that much except for that some peers were suggested adding in a search bar, since some users might not know the geographic location of their city, so they can search that. So I implemented that with suggestions from my peers in my class on the discussion forum. For workflows, there are 4 different workflows that the user can go into. The water quality map is displayed upon opening the map. The first one is going around the map to find out the water quality. The second one is clicking on the air quality to find out the air quality in cities. The third one is clicking on my profile to open my profile. And number 4 is on the need help page to submit a report, query your problems, or look for solutions. So these are the different workflows. Continuing on the develop double diamond model part, we have the user interface design principles and guidelines. So everything that's not bolded was part of the previous video, so I'm not going to address that for the sake of time. In mapping, we have that each label maps to the respective page. So air quality, the lungs map to the air quality part page. the water quality and the drop map to the water quality page. So that's part of the mapping. A click on the map opens the closest city, which is also part of mapping, and searching. So you can search and it'll search the city that you're looking for. And another part that we learned about in the second half of the course is the knowledge in the world versus knowledge in the head. So I've used really limited memory from the user, so the user is not overloaded. Current location is automatically calculated, and the visual map with the search option makes the user really not have to spend that much knowledge in their head. And the clear labeled buttons are so intuitive, so for the user, so like the lungs and the water drop makes it really intuitive, so the user doesn't have to remember how to use the website over and over again. And this makes errors limited, like memory lapse errors or any errors related to memory. For error handling, testing, and future possibilities, errors are handled with pop-up messages similar to this one over here, and users are faced with the OK or report button. So the OK goes back to the current page, report goes to possible solutions and the contact information for reporting issues. And this is implementing the Swiss cheese model, where we're preventing a line full of errors by adding an error message at the first error. So each time an error happens, the user has to go through this page. So this prevents a line of errors from happening, since the error stopped at the first error. So the holes don't match up, like in terms of Swiss cheese. And then adding on in constraints. So I've added in some logical constraints where the user can't access map or environment quality data. The only buttons that are placed on maps are clickable. Unclickable stuff is static, like quality, scale, and oceans. Semantic constraints are the confirmation buttons when something is being edited or inputted. So there's a confirmation, like you want to go forward with this. It's also contextual meaning, where the lung symbols and the drop symbols, so it's really intuitive for the user. They know what to do. The colors, like red is equal to bad, green is blue is equal to good. So that's something that the user will already bring from their memory. And it's a similar map used from Google Maps and other maps, where the user can just click on drag around the map, so that makes it easier for the user. A physical constraint is that the screen size half is map and half is navigation menu, and then there's the option to expand the map to the entire screen, so that's a physical constraint. The testing is pretty similar, where I'm using black box text testing, which is a diagram is shown here. And then it's a human-centered design, and it's a universal and inclusive design, which is going to be because of flexibility. It's flexible for anybody in the world to use. This design is human-centered because it's focusing on user needs and what users want. It asks for user input if this resource is useful for them or not, so that'll make it human-centered. And the black box testing helps in making it user-oriented or human-centered design by adhering to users, since we're going to be asking the user if this is easy for them to use. This resource is for users, and it's not really activity-centered design because there's limited features, and it's more focused on easy user use, which the black box will help in. And moving on, for designing for different people, these things are what we learned in the second half of the course, where designing for different people means building different versions. And that's what I want to include in the future ideas of growth/evolution and expansion. So in future ideas, I thought of creating an app like similar to shown here, where to accompany the website, allowing for users to have access on mobile devices, and that'll help build design for different people, since maybe not everybody has access to the to website software area. Also, allowing users to save places that they've already visited is a future idea. Displaying historical records is also a future idea. And also options for different colors. So this is something related to cultural constraints that I want to, this should be implemented in the future. And it comes back to the human-centered design and designing for different people, that in some cultures red is good, and so that should be considered. Where I put in red is equal to bad, that's really Western thinking, while some countries believe that red is good, so that I could switch around the colors a bit to add in a cultural constraint. And also, some people read from right to left, so even though I've made my design so we have the menu on the left side and the map on the right side, some people might prefer having the menu on the right side and the map on the left side due to the way they read. So those are some options I can implement in the future that will help with constraints like that. So these are my references, and thank you so much for watching. This is the updated version for the project.